This is a live stream on the Locals platform, and we're going to be talking about liability for Tesla self-driving cars. Let's go. There's a perception that a lot of people seem to have that I've heard this a few times now. If Tesla rolls out a robotaxi fleet, they're going to get sued so much that they won't be able to afford the business, that it's going to be this huge drag on the business. I want to address that. First of all, I think people think Tesla can't get sued now for the robotaxi network, for self-driving cars. And the fact is, Tesla has already been sued for accidents involving Autopilot. There's been at least a few lawsuits where there were car crashes. And just really quick, by the way, this is a live stream on the Locals platform, warrenredlich.locals.com, The Daily Lie. People who are paying supporters of The Daily Lie can comment and can participate in the chat. Please consider supporting me on the Locals platform if you'd like to participate in things like this. People who follow me, who support me on the Locals platform or on Patreon or as YouTube channel members get early access to some of my videos, most of my videos really, especially the exclusive content level on the YouTube platform. On the basic channel members get less access. One of the things that people are fixated on is there's this organization called the Society for Automotive Engineers, and they created this level system for self-driving cars that Tesla FSD now, or Tesla Autopilot now, is considered level 2. You have to supervise it. Then there's level 3, 4, and 5. I don't remember the exact distinctions, but level 4 is basically the car drives itself in some circumstances, and level 5 is the car drives itself in all circumstances. And there's this idea people have that this determines liability, that if the car is level 2, the driver is liable. If the car is at level 4, level 5, then the car or the whoever wrote the software is liable. And this is misleading because, like I said, Tesla's only level 2 and they've been sued for autopilot accidents. There haven't been many, fortunately, and oftentimes the ones that are claimed to be autopilot accidents aren't autopilot accidents, but they can get sued. So, it's very simply, think about it from this perspective. Because I was a trial lawyer. I sued dozens, if not hundreds, of auto accident cases. I defended over 1,000 auto accident cases. I used to work for Allstate Insurance Company, and I defended over 1,000 auto accident cases for Allstate. Now, put yourself in the position of a personal injury lawyer. You've got this case. Your client was in an accident with another car, and the other car was a Tesla. And the other car has a $25,000 insurance policy, and your client has $1 million injury. So are you going to sue the guy with the $25,000 policy, or are you going to sue the $1 trillion company? Or are you going to sue both? Now, you can probably guess we're going to sue both. That's just how it's going to be. We're going to sue both. If a lawyer is handling a case and they get the sense that the car did something wrong, and that contributed to the accident, they're going to sue Tesla anyway. Now, it is true that when you go to level 4 and level 5 and the person's sitting in the back seat, they're not going to sue the person in the back seat anymore. If it's a Tesla-owned robotaxi, then Tesla's going to be on the hook for all of it. There isn't going to be somebody else to sue. But the practical reality, first of all, is today, if somebody was in FSD or Autopilot and an accident happened, then they're going to sue Tesla anyway. Even if Tesla says, hey, we're only level 2, you can't sue us, state courts don't care about that. The Society for Automotive Engineers doesn't define legal liability in the United States or in any particular state. And car accident cases are decided based on state law, not federal law. As I'm not familiar with any federal laws that have any significance in this kind of question. It's states that determine these things, not federal government. So I want to move forward. I want to address the potential liability situation in a world where Tesla goes to a point where the humans are sitting in the back seat, or the car is empty, or the humans have no control over the car. So now you have an accident that happens with a self-driving car. And yeah, the Tesla's on the hook for that. I think people have this idea that somebody else is on the hook for it. If FSD's driving the car, Tesla's driving the car, Tesla's on the hook for it. I haven't heard any plans of playing any kind of legal maneuvers to get Tesla off the hook for that. And my take on this, and I should mention, I was talking to my friend Trent Carter, who lives here in the Space Coast, near Melbourne, Florida, Satellite Beach, Florida, near Canaveral, basically. And he mentioned I should do a video about this because I think he heard me talking about this in some other context, maybe on another video. So thank you, Trent Carter, for bringing this up. So, I want to be clear that the thing that people miss when they think that this is going to be a huge problem for Tesla is Tesla is a much bigger company than the Allstate Insurance Company, right? I worked for Allstate Insurance Company. I handled over 1,000 cases. I handled like 250 cases at one time, and I was one lawyer out of dozens of lawyers working for Allstate in upstate New York. There was lawyers in upstate New York. There was lawyers in New York City. There's lawyers all over the country handling cases for Allstate. And I would have 250 cases at one time. And Allstate didn't go bankrupt. Allstate is a much smaller company than Tesla. They're not a $1 trillion company. I'm not sure they're even a $100 billion company. I think Trent looked it up when we were talking about it. It's like a $50 billion company. And somehow they managed to handle way more lawsuits than Tesla's going to see for FSD, because this is the other side of it. Self-driving cars, FSD is not going to be level 4 or level 5 until it's safer than human. And it's going to be a lot safer than human. The accident rate is going to drop to 1/10 of its current accident rate. So currently in America, we have about 40,000 traffic deaths a year on our roads. Worldwide, it's more than that. It's a million or so. But now picture what happens if we have a world of self-driving cars. You're going to see the death rate fall from 40,000 to 4,000. The accidents are going to be cut to 10% of what they are today. So, and I might even say 1/100th of what they are today. We're basically going to wipe out car accidents. You can add in, we're probably going to be using boring tunnels. There won't be any pedestrians in the boring tunnels. The cars will react quicker when there is an accident. They will get to slower speeds. They will position themselves to cause less damage to a pedestrian or bicyclist they might hit. There's going to be a lot of crazy improvements in the way vehicles handle to make people safer. So I think that, Trent was suggesting that I should like do the math and show you how much money is involved and how, and I don't think I need to do the math. I think if I put it to you this way, Tesla's going to have fewer cases than Allstate. Even though Allstate, Tesla's going to have a larger share. I think Tesla's going to have a huge market share, right? But Allstate has a big market share. And you can say Geico and you can say State Farm or whatever, any one of those companies, they're nowhere near the size of Tesla, right? And they manage to handle these accidents. So Mitch says lawsuits will cost dollars to defend. This would be better used towards expanding gigafactories or research. It's a waste of everyone's time and resources. Tesla can't control whether lawsuits happen. And the revenue generated by, like right now, Tesla's a $1 trillion company. When robotaxi happens, Tesla's a $10 trillion, $20 trillion, $50 trillion company, right? And the lawsuits that are going to happen are going to be trivial. They're going to be tiny compared to the value that's generated by Tesla as a company. So there's the fears that Tesla's going to be bogged down in litigation. And just a really good example of this, like, well, how are they going to handle this? Well, if they become a high volume owner of robotaxis, or they expect a high volume of lawsuits, which I think is likely to happen, not that there'll be a high volume compared to what Allstate and State Farm see. Because remember, if they drop the number of accidents by 90% or 99%, they're going to have fewer lawsuits. And if they're able to minimize the impact in those accidents, then they're going to have fewer damages and less damages and all that. So in that world, I wanted to get to a point. If you look at Walmart, people don't know this. I know this because I sued Walmart. Or maybe I was working for Allstate when Walmart was sued. I forget exactly how it happened. I think I brought a claim against Walmart once. Walmart is so big and they generate so many claims because people fall down in Walmarts every day. Somewhere in the country, probably 10 people a day fall in a Walmart. I'm making up the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was that high. And they get, bumped in a parking lot or something, they get bumped by a shopping cart or whatever it is. These things happen at Walmart. And Walmart has I forget the term for it. They have their own internal company that handles their claims. When they have an actual lawsuit, they hire a local lawyer to handle the local lawsuit, but their claims operation, Allstate has a claims operation, State Farm has a claims operation. Walmart brought the claims operation effectively in-house. I'm not sure if it's in-house or if it's sort of like a subsidiary company that they created, but Walmart basically took on, and that reduces their cost. Instead of paying an outside company to handle their claims, they just said, why don't we just bring it in-house and handle the claims ourselves? And that reduces their cost of handling claims. And Tesla will very likely do the same thing. They will create their own claims division to handle the claims from these accidents, basically buy a small insurance company or something like that already has a claims operation, or copy what Walmart did. They'll figure it out. And that they're actually better able to handle the litigation than, let's say, Hertz. Some some car rental company. There's some company that has a fleet of like 100 cars or 1,000 cars. Maybe what Hertz might even have their own internal. But picture a company that has 100 cars or 1,000 cars. They're still probably paying an outside insurance company to handle their claims. You have to get big enough to justify handling the claims yourself, and then you actually lower your cost of handling claims. So I just wanted to, the biggest thing is, look, if there's 40,000 traffic deaths a year in the United States, the comparable out of 340 million people, right? It sounds like a lot, but out of 340 million people, it's not that much. And it's going to drop in a world full of robotaxis. It's going to drop to 40,000. It's going to from 40,000 to 4,000. It's going to drop from 4,000 to 400. And traffic deaths are basically going to go away. And traffic accidents are basically going to go away. So there will be some accidents, and there will be some lawyers who try to play games and try to get a jury to be passionate about, making that terrible big company pay. And I'm not saying it'll never work with a jury. I'm not saying they'll never persuade a jury, but it's not going to work that well. And don't forget that if there is a lawsuit and a jury gives a big number, it goes to a judge for review. If the judge still lets it go and it's too high, then it goes to an appeals court to review. It's very rare for a case where it's not really deserved. Does the number go much higher than low millions? And the big cases, it's another thing people don't know. The big car accident cases where there's really a lot of value, where there's a lot of money generated, or a big jury award or a big actual award, is when somebody's injured and they're like put in a nursing home for 20 years. And you anticipate this person's going to need care in a nursing home for 20 or 30 years because they got a brain injury, let's say, and they need like ongoing care for 20 or 30 years. And they lost income for 20 or 30 years. And you add it up, and you got $100,000 a year times 30 years, and you get $3 million, right? And that's the kind of thing that can really pump up the value. And then you say pain and suffering, and you double it or something like that. And you can end up with fairly big numbers in cases like that, but they're extremely rare, and they're going to be way more rare in a world of self-driving cars. And really the biggest claims are like when you have a reason why OBGYNs pay so much for insurance is when a baby is injured, the baby might have a 50 or 60-year life expectancy with all this stuff. So yeah, Mitch says, deep pockets are always targets. Damn lawyers, put them on the first starship to Mars. Oh, Hertz does have their own internal company to deal with claims. That's not surprising, yeah. Melody says, Tesla will have the data and visual recordings of the accidents on their side. That's actually a really good point, Melody. I probably should have thought of that before I started the video. But there's some fraud in car accident cases. Some. Where I worked in Albany, New York, most of my personal injury work was in Albany, New York, and I did not feel there was a lot of fraud. I was working for Allstate for 3 years, and there were some cases that were weak, and there were some cases that might have been some level of fraud, but it wasn't that bad. New York City has a reputation for a lot of insurance fraud in that situation. Florida does have a reputation for a lot of insurance fraud in that situation. I was actually briefly working in a firm where I felt they were basically committing fraud, and I left. That's not what I want to do. How many of these days are going to get the BR 5549 ref? I guess I'm too old. I don't know the BR 5549 ref. Oh, that's a phone number? Oh, that's an old phone number. Okay, I get it. So that's the basic point, is there won't be that many accidents. There are going to be a lot fewer accidents. Tesla has plenty of resources to handle it. They're a bigger company than Allstate or State Farm. They're probably a bigger company than Allstate, State Farm, Geico, and 3 other Travelers and Hartford combined by a lot. So they can afford, and they'll be much bigger. You go to a robotaxi world, they're 10 times as big as that. So, and to Melody's point with the data and visual recordings, the fraud cases will be much easier. Now, there's different kinds of fraud, right? There's the fraud of who caused the accident. And there are an example of a fraud in an accident. When people stage, there are cases where people stage accidents. So you've got turn lanes. You've got, let's say, 2 turn lanes going together, and one of the cars will deliberately hit the other car and then blame the other car for the accident. And there's no recording. And then usually insurance companies will call that 50-50. And then and the other side of the fraud is the medical fraud, which is there. In Florida I think Florida is particularly bad for this. I don't know New York City, but my understanding is it's particularly bad in New York City. There are just clinics that are basically connected with law firms that are just like mills that, that everybody who comes in gets this. Everybody who comes in gets a spine MRI. Everybody who comes in gets this. They push them down the road to get this kind of procedure that they don't really need. and the lawyers generate a lot of money on what are called no-fault claims, and they get the guy some money, and it just ends up being a drag on everybody else because it raises auto insurance premiums. Minnie Pearl's hat. I don't know the price tag on Minnie Pearl's hat. I'm sorry, I missed that one. Is that Minnie the Moocher? Yeah, so so that kind of fraud story is not going to work as well if you have a Tesla that's recording on multiple cameras and has its own tracking of the data of where it was in the road. And then you got some guy saying, no, that's not true. It's like, well, here's the camera, right? And the camera might even catch the guy steering in the car. You're going to get to the point where those cars aren't even on the road, right? Most of the cars on the road are robotaxis, and there'll be few human drivers. And and I honestly think the number of accidents is going to fall so low that plaintiffs' lawyers are going to have to find another line of work. Drunk driving lawyers. I know this is going to upset everybody, but the lawyers are going to suffer. Just take a moment. Let's take a moment and let's have a moment of silence for the lawyers. Okay, I'm just kidding. We're not going to have a moment of silence. That would be boring on video. But I've done videos about this before. I may do a video about this again, but you're going to wipe out drunk driving cases because people, if you're going to go out drinking, you're going to take a robotaxi, and at some point you're just going to take a robotaxi anyway. And so you're going to eliminate drunk driving cases. You're going to eliminate. People don't know this. One of the most common crimes in the criminal courts in America today is driving with a suspended license, driving with a suspended insurance, driving with a suspended registration. All these things go away when you don't have to own a car anymore. And you're just going to see this massive shift where people don't bother owning cars. They don't bother having driver's licenses. They don't need to use a driver's license. They'll probably have some form of ID, and maybe they'll maintain a driver's license for a while. But ultimately, are you going to bother getting your kid a driver's license? You're going to bother going through all that when they're just going to hop in a robotaxi and get there cheaper. So you're going to put drunk driving defense lawyers out of work and a lot of criminal defense lawyers out of work. A lot of drug cases arise out of a traffic stop. That somebody commits a traffic violation, the police pull them over and they search the cars. Are they going to have a basis for pulling a car over in a robotaxi world? You're going to wipe out all the drug cases. You're just wiping out a ton of criminal cases. So the criminal lawyers are going to be out of work. I want to reassure everybody who's worried about the lawyers, I want to reassure you there will still be domestic violence. There will still be domestic violence. There will still be violent crime. There will still be robberies. So there will still be work for lawyers. I know you're all worried about it, and you're happy to hear that we will still have some kinds of crime. And we're going to have no accidents, and we're going to have no speeding tickets. So it's going to be brutal for lawyers. And like I said, please, we'll stay. I think JT Fogarty's going to take up collection. He's going to start a GoFundMe to save the lawyers. So the idea that Tesla is going to get drowned in car accident lawsuits over robotaxi is, I think, a bad mistake. There's going to be far less accidents. There will be far less lawsuits in robotaxi world than there will be in human driver world. And Tesla's going to have way more money than all the companies together that currently handle car accident cases and the lawsuits. So that's it. I didn't know how long this. Apparently, it's not very long. We'll see how it goes. I may post this directly on YouTube. We'll see what I think about that, or if I want to do a new video and edit it, or I'll edit this before I put it on YouTube. That's right. The lawyers will still have people falling at Walmart. They fall in grocery stores. It's Walmart, the grocery stores. Anybody who has commercial property, somebody walks in and falls on your property, they sue you. They make a claim, whatever. It's a big hassle for a lot of companies. And sometimes the companies do something wrong and they leave the floor slippery when they shouldn't. They put a mat in the wrong way and people trip over it. Sometimes it is their fault. I'm not trying to minimize that. But honestly, most of the time I saw it, it was like, that's a pretty weak case. And when I'm from in upstate New York, like, people would sue over falling in an icy parking lot, and the juries in upstate New York hated that. It's like, yeah, it was an icy parking lot. We live in upstate New York. That happens. Why are you suing over that? It's kind of nonsense. Will Tesla use a transponder in each car so they can talk to each other? Not really on point, but I think that it's very likely that at some point, I shouldn't say very likely, I think there's a strong chance that at some point they will enable intercar communication. I'm not sure how useful that's going to be. I'm not sure it's going to be necessary, but it might make sense to do it, to allow car number 2 to see what car number 1 is seeing. Or for car number 1 to tell car number 2, I'm hitting my brakes. Maybe there's some value in that. I don't think that's really going to be necessary. I think we're going to get to 10x safer than human, as in, 1/10 the number of accidents without even bothering with transponders. And we may get to 1/100th the number of accidents without even doing transponders. So I don't know how much value transponders add when you get to that point. Car-to-car communication, where the computer in one car is communicating to the computer in the other car and warning about what it sees. I think it'd be nice if the cars were mapping the roads. Looking at the roads and noticing when something doesn't fit with what the map says, and then uploading that to the cloud, and then the cloud comes down and lets all the other cars know, hey, the map changed here. At least the cars in that area. That would make some sense, maybe, but I don't think that's a particular concern. There's a few other people typing. I was gonna end, but we got people typing, so keep typing. Let's see what other questions you have. Like 4 people are typing. I'll just make a pitch again. This is a video that I filmed, did as a live stream on the Locals platform. Supporters like Jim Manley and Melody and JT Fogarty and Bruce and Mitch are able to comment in the chat, and that makes it more interactive. If you support me on the Locals platform, you get to comment, and you get early access to a lot of my videos on YouTube, usually the day before. So Jim Manley says a lot of research leading to a proposed standard has been going on, and Tesla's been involved to some degree. I think he's talking about the car-to-car communication. Point Tesla to non-Tesla vehicles. Do you think most people will trade paying insurance for paying $300 a month for FSD? So that's from Todd Lake. So I don't think that's the game. I don't think it's about paying $300 a month for FSD. I think, well, number one, you're not just paying for FSD to reduce your liability in car accidents. You're paying $300 a month for FSD so that the car can drive you and you don't have to pay attention anymore. And it's going to be more than $300 a month. But I think the real future is fleets own robotaxis and you don't own a car. You pay for rides. And right now, people are paying $2.50 or $3 a mile to ride in Ubers. In the early days of robotaxi, it'll probably be $1.50 a mile to ride in a robotaxi. Saves a lot of money because you're not paying a driver, and EVs are more efficient than gas cars. And then as the number of Teslas or number of robotaxis on the roads increase, you get to the point where it's really meeting demand, where there's more in you, and Tesla will ultimately have to lower the price of a robotaxi ride in order to, which the volume of robotaxis makes up for the lowering of the price, and that means that for a lot of people, buying a car won't make sense anymore. It'll make more sense. And Kathy Wood of ARK Invest, the ARK Invest team, Tasha Keeney and the rest of the team at ARK Invest, they're predicting that the cost of a robotaxi ride will drop to 25 cents a mile, where it currently costs the average American about 70 cents a mile to own their car. So if you can push the price of a robotaxi ride below, say, 50 cents a mile, large numbers of people aren't going to bother to own cars anymore. JT Fogarty says a transponder in traffic would be useful, and that one could say, let me pass for 50 cents. I don't know. I don't know if that seems like a small issue compared to the larger issues that we face here. FSD costs should be based on mileage. I don't think it really ends up mattering. I just think that look, if you're wealthy, like I'm not poor, and I already own 2 Teslas that are probably going to be robotaxis, and by the time this happens, I might own a third, or I'll probably sell the X and have a Cybertruck and a Model 3. So I'm going to run mine as robotaxis if I can. But the vast majority of people aren't going to buy a car. They're just going to buy Just picture that. If it's hard for people to wrap their heads around it. If you could live a life where you don't have to own a car, and you never have to get an oil change, and you never have to change the wipers, and you never have to get new tires, you never have to rotate your tires, and you never have to replace a muffler, and you never have to sell a car and buy a car and deal with a car dealer and shop for car insurance, all that stuff goes away, and you just tell your phone, hey, I need a ride, and at the time you get out to the street or wherever, there's a robotaxi pulling up to pick you up, and you go where you want to go, and it drops you off at the front door where you're going, and when you're done shopping or whatever you're doing, you come out, picks you up at the front door. You don't have to search for your car in the rain or in the snow. You don't have to scrape ice off your car. That you hop in the car and it's the right temperature. When you hop in, it's not too cold, it's not too warm. The robotaxi world is going to be a great world, and a lot of people are going to love it, and it's going to save a lot of people money. And particularly, people think that this is like a great thing for rich people. People don't realize poor people typically have poor credit. They typically pay more for car insurance. They typically pay higher financing costs for car loans because their credit scores are lower. Not all poor people, just on average, they tend to have lower. My credit score is over 800. My interest rates are low. My insurance rates are low. Credit score matters. Credit score makes life easier. Back when I was a practicing trial lawyer in New York, I was paying $250 a month for a brand new Honda Accord. I had a client who was paying $500 a month for like 5-year-old crappy SUV that wasn't as good as my Accord. And that's just the car payment. Won't work here in rural Montana. Closest city is 2 hours away each way. So this is a very common complaint I get about I wasn't planning on talking about robotaxi so much, but this is the common complaint I get from people is, well, that's not going to work where I live. Well, if where you live is where 1% of the world's of the United States population lives, as in, rural places that are more than 2 hours from the average city, from the nearby city, Well, that's not a huge problem for Tesla. Tesla's trying to reach, 80, 90% of the market with robotaxi. If there's 10% of the market doesn't serve, well, then you guys will figure it out. Mitch says, wouldn't that be a kick in the ass if the Tesla robo fleet lowers demand for all cars? Yeah, I mean, it's going to lower the demand for buying cars for individuals, but it's going to massively increase the demand for buying cars and fleets. And will Tesla be owning the fleets? Will Tesla sell to fleets? I think it's going to be a little of both. I think the Hertz deal is an indication that Hertz wants to be a fleet operator in the robotaxi world. That's really forward thinking for Hertz if that's what they're doing. Mitch says, so Elon will be disrupting more industries, affecting insurance companies and lawyers. Yeah, I think so. This is one of those things also. People think that Tesla insurance can be a huge moneymaker for Tesla. Stephen Mark Ryan. I love Stephen Mark Ryan. I'm not trying to criticize him, but Stephen Mark Ryan has talked about how much money Tesla's going to make on car insurance. And I think he's wrong in the long term. He's right in the short term and the medium term. But in the long term, car insurance goes away because Tesla's responsible and you're not going to own a car. Right, the fleets will have a different method of insuring their fleets. The private fleets, Tesla will self-insure. Large fleets will self-insure, and it won't, Hertz is going to self-insure. Somebody already said that Hertz has its own claims department already. Jim's Cybertruck Robotaxi service. Call BR549 anywhere in Montana. Yeah, I think you're underestimating the potential for Robotaxi to serve rural markets. If you live in the middle of nowhere and your nearest neighbor is 10 miles away, then sure, Robotaxi might not serve you. But if you're in the exurbs, if you're outside the suburbs and you're in the area outside the suburbs, but you're still, the cost of operating the robotaxi is going to be so cheap that you're just going to pay a little extra for the ride. So you might end up paying 30 or 40 cents a mile instead of 25 cents a mile. You're still going to get your ride. It's still going to be easier than everything else you're doing. They're going to pre-position the network will know where the rides tend to come from, and they'll pre-position robotaxis in the middle of the night so they're close to where the rides are going to come from. It's Klondike 555. All these guys are talking about old numbers from the old days. You're cracking me up. So anyway, the fundamental point, just to get back to the fundamental point, I think that the world of self-driving cars, the world of robotaxi, does not create huge legal liability for Tesla. I think it ends up reducing lawsuits. Personal injury lawyers go away. The billboards go away. I know you're all going to be disappointed. You won't see the billboards. You won't see the TV ads for personal injury lawyers anymore. Very, very upsetting for you. I know this is really frustrating. I feel for you. It's going to be a rough life without all those lawyer ads. So that's the story. I hope you like this. For those on Locals, thank you so much for supporting me, for watching here, and for the people in the chat and the supporters. Thank you so much for your support. For those who are watching this on YouTube later, please consider supporting me on the Locals platform. Please consider, or on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Exclusive content level and above gets early access to all the videos. Basic level gets access to some of the videos. You also get to do questions in advance for most of my Sunday live streams on YouTube. So that's the story. Ads inside. There will be ads inside the robotaxi, but not for personal injury lawyers. Maybe for estate planning lawyers, because we'll all be so wealthy that we're going to need estate planning lawyers to help us dodge taxes. Thanks everyone so much for watching. And for YouTube people, please support the channel on Locals. Please check out my other videos. Please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. This is Critical Thinking in Latin. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you all so much for watching.